back to the Football Tribe UG channel. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. Welcome back to yet another live broadcast on your favorite football updates channel. It's a pleasure to be back. It's a beautiful Monday morning, 7 minutes past the hour of 9 a.m. It's quite bright and sunny out there, and everything is looking pretty good. So yeah, we are back once again to discuss the latest from the world of football, from transfers, from the preseason engagement that all your clubs are being involved in, and everything to do with that line. So indulge me as we get set for today's broadcast. I wish to say thank you to all our new community members. You've done us proud. Thank you so much. For those of you that have subscribed to the channel in recent times, for those of you that continue to watch our content, we do not take your love and support for granted. Everything is much well appreciated. In as far as those that were part of yesterday's discussion, yesterday evening, Sunday evening, it's very unusual that we do broadcasts around that time, but it was a pleasure seeing you, every single one of you that managed to chip in for that broadcast. So thank you so much, Pedri, Pedri, the Barcelona fan, Daniel Tuton from the UK, there, a Liverpool fan, and all the others that managed to be part of that broadcast. So thank you so much. It was a pleasure being with you for that broadcast, and I hope you continue to be regulars on the channel as we get to discuss more and more sport. Then the other thing that I think, before I get any, I go any further, allow me have our audience tested on this side to make sure everything does check out quite well, because sometimes we get caught off guard when it comes to our sound. But I think we're good to go. I think we're good to go on this front. So yes, I wish to also send my sincere apologies. Yesterday night we did not do our routine broadcast. By the time I got done with everything that I was supposed to do, it was almost approaching midnight. So I figured it was a little too late for us to get on here. But again, sometimes things happen beyond your own control, and you just have to let them be. Sometimes that's how life can be. But it's good to be back. We are finally back, and this morning we'll be discussing Luis Diaz, who is set for a medical today ahead of completing his move from Liverpool to Bayern Munich. So, good morning, everyone. For those of you that are just joining us, kindly like the broadcast, but also consider subscribing to the channel if you're new here, and help me help support me to 2,000 subscribers. That's the objective for now. I'm coming to you live from Kampala, Uganda. That's where I'm coming to you live, and I hope every single one of you is doing well. How is your Monday? Where are you joining us from? Do let me know down in the comment section. And as the headline has it, that will be the gist of our topic this morning. So do let me know where you're joining us from, and I'll be reading your comments in the comment section. So, like I said, our flight will take us to Japan, where Liverpool currently are. Of course, after leaving Hong Kong, where they lost by 4-2 against AC Milan, they traveled to Japan, where they will play Yokohama FM as part of their preseason tour over there. So that's where they traveled, and Luis Diaz is part of that contingent. He didn't feature in their 4-2 loss against AC Milan. He wasn't part of that squad, but it's all good. It's all good because he was being spared as he is preparing to complete that move from Liverpool to Bayern Munich. The total package is worth about 75 million euros, which I believe is quite, the negotiation, the best result I think Liverpool could ever get out of the 28-year-old who had 2 years left for his current contract. And when you look at his numbers, they're not out of this world, really. Basically, for example, in the Premier League, he posted, I think, about 29 goals in 103 appearances. ever since he's been at Liverpool. That's for the last 3.5 years, because he joined them in January 2022. And then, of course, at the time of signing him from FC Porto, they competed for him with Tottenham Hotspurs, who equally were interested in signing him. And then he posted a total of 15 assists across those 3.5 years, giving him a 44 goal involvement in 103 appearances. On paper, it doesn't look pretty, but he is a good player. He can take on, defenders V versus V, 1v1. He can take on players. He has a good cross. Sometimes he gets ahead of himself, or his decision making sometimes falls short of his own experience. But all round, he's a good player. But I think for Liverpool to get 75 million euros, in which they get to make a profit, because I think when they were signing him, they signed him for about 45 million pounds plus some add-ons, for which only 4 million pounds of those add-ons had been achieved at the time of his departure. I think part of that maybe had to do with Liverpool winning the Premier League title and things of that nature. So they get to make a profit, because the total package is worth about 75 million euros. That's in the guaranteed fees, and add-ons respectively. So, I mean, if you do ask me whether that money or that valuation of the player is worth it, I would say in the modern day market, yes, that would be his value. But under normal circumstances, you'd think to yourself that a player who soon will be turning 49, going for that much money, and yet his numbers are not extraordinary. It leaves a couple of things to think about. Because I personally do believe, I think there's a couple of wingers out there that may have posted better numbers in the last. For example, if let's say we are to compare, when you look at the negotiations, and I know there's a bit of a difference in context. For example, Manchester United being able to move on Marcus Rashford for a mere loan. I do not think there is a loan fee even involved. With Barcelona taking charge of 100% of his wages, for which we are led to believe that he took a pay cut on that. But for him going for literally free, plus an expectation to buy for 30 million euros, when you compare that to Luis Diaz, who, because Marcus Rashford is 27, when you look at their last 3.5 seasons or last 3 seasons in the Premier League, I think Marcus Rashford overall could have better numbers, because you go back to the 2022-2023 campaign, he scored 17 goals and provided 5 assists. You then go to the subsequent season where he, I think, scored about 7 goals. So that's already 24. But overall, I think in 287 appearances, he has more than 100 goals. And that's for Marcus Rashford. Now, of course, he's been at Manchester United much longer than Luis Diaz had been at Liverpool. But to say that Manchester United do not even stand to make half of what Liverpool are going to make off that Luis Diaz deal in sheer comparison, I think that's where we ought to give, Richard Hughes and his counterparts for negotiating a very, very good deal. I mean, they stuck it out, they stuck their guns in these negotiations to push Bayern Munich, because they knew Bayern Munich really, really wanted the player, having missed out on Nico Williams and having lost Leroy Sané to Galatasaray, so they need a replacement. 2, they did not want to sell. That's for sure. With the player left to his 2 years to his contract, you still have an upper hand as the parent club. Really, you still have some mileage in those negotiations. But when you look at the Manchester United side, Marcus Rashford still had 3 years left to his contract. So meaning by the end of his loan spell, he would still be his contract would still be valid with Manchester United for the next 2 years, and that should, let's say, Barcelona negate their option to buy, because from what has been reported, it's not an obligation to buy. I think maybe the option to buy becomes an obligation at some point if certain achievements are arrived on. And when we say certain achievements being arrived on, is for example, if let's say Marcus Rashford makes, let's say, maybe 30 appearances across the entire campaign. It's sort of similar to what Arsenal and Fulham are trying to negotiate for Rhys Nelson. So usually that's usually when usually some buy options are structured in that nature, that we are loaning you this player, you're not paying us a loan fee, and if they make, let's say, 20 appearances, and maybe if they score 10 goals, if maybe they make 30 appearances, if maybe you win the league title, or if you reach you reach the knockout stages of the UEFA Champions League, or even make it to the quarterfinals or semi-finals, or even lift it at the very end, then it becomes an obligation to buy. From what I'm being impressed upon, that looks to be the kind of structure of the deal or kind of negotiations which Manchester United may have entertained with Barcelona. So he goes out on loan with no loan fee, at least to the best of our knowledge at this point, unless more information comes out henceforth in the near future or further down the line, because the nitty-gritties of these contracts are as private as private parts come. So in fact, these days, the way people expose their private parts, you may think they are less private. Anyways, jokes aside, but that would be the expectation, really, that at the end of his loan move, when Barcelona move to make that deal permanent, then they'll pay 30 million euros. So when you compare that to the deal for Luis Diaz, who is a year older, and overall, I think Marcus Rashford has had better Premier League history and pedigree in terms of personal game, because Marcus Rashford had a title to his name, unlike Luis Diaz. So maybe that was part of the negotiating advantage. But when you look at all the metrics that you measure when signing a player, in terms of age profile, in terms of delivery, you feel that Marcus Rashford has that edge over Luis Diaz, and yet he is being bought at 75 million euros, while Marcus Rashford is going for 30 million euros, which is only an option to buy for even at a later date. So yesterday it broke out that a full agreement had been reached between Bayern Munich and Liverpool on a permanent deal for Luis Diaz. Breakthrough was achieved after a second offer that was submitted, as revealed earlier on Friday. That's when the news first broke out that he is expected to sign a 4-year contract with an option to extend it for a further year should he pass his medical at Bayern Munich. And then, so that's so far what we know. And the player is expected, like I said, to travel from Liverpool's preseason tour in Japan today to head to Germany, where he will undergo his medicals ahead of completing that move to Bayern Munich. So brilliant piece of business that Liverpool have been able to conduct on this one, because I mean, Liverpool I think have been really, really good at selling their players. And this is at the point which I may differ in opinion with Zero Requiem. By the way, another Liverpool fan, one of the semi-regulars on our broadcast, although we've not seen him in the last couple of days. I hope he's doing well. But when you look at the negotiations, in moving on in selling players like Joel Quaisha for £30 million plus £5 million in expected add-ons, which also that deal includes a buyback option for about £60 million. I mean, because he is considered a homegrown player, and that's pure profit for Liverpool. Hello, Agafanov. Good to have you, our colleague from Russia. Always a pleasure to see you on our broadcast. Then you look at that, and you look at this deal for Luis Diaz. Of course, he's won major titles with Liverpool, a Premier League title last season. He's won a Carabao Cup, I think two Carabao Cups, one FA Cup, and the Community Shield. So on paper, he's been a successful Liverpool player. So, but when you look at those numbers in terms of transfer fee, you can't help commend Richard Hughes and his counterparts for negotiating a very, very good deal and moving on a player. And guess what? People keep wondering how Liverpool are able to to sign all these players in this transfer window quite expensively is because they have the money. They have the money. They're selling players. I remember they sold Kelleher quite with a profit. They sold him for £18 million to Brentford. I think his parent club, his previous club, I think go earn about £2 million out of that deal. You know, so you look at the players that you remember that deal involving Alexander Trent-Arnold. You know, they managed to milk €10 million out of Real Madrid just to let the player out of his contract early enough so that he could represent Real Madrid at the recently concluded FIFA Club World Cup in the USA. So you look at all that and think to yourself, this is impressive work in terms of negotiating. So I think they've done good for a player that in a few weeks' time they are not going to earn a penny out from. It looks really, really impressive. And it's not to say they are done in selling and buying, but yeah. So when you look at those resources combined with what else they have within their coffers, then tell me why they cannot afford Alexander Isak. In any case, reports do suggest that they are preparing a bid, an important bid, and Newcastle are aware of that Liverpool are preparing a bid to try and sign Alexander Isak from Newcastle. But let's wait and see how everything will transpire on that front in respect to Alexander Isak, and as Luis Diaz also completes that move. Anyways, I want us to move away from Luis Diaz and focus on Manchester United. Now, yesterday, that was yesterday in the wee hours at 2 a.m. So it was the Saturday night leading into Sunday. Manchester United beat up against West Ham United, excuse me, by 2-1. Those goals scored by Bruno Fernandes, one being a penalty and the other, an open play goal. Of course, Amadou Diallo also getting himself on the score sheet, but his goal was cancelled out for an offside. I just wanted to speak about Manchester United's press because they looked really, really organized off the ball. They pressed well against West Ham. I thought they denied them spaces. Now, in the way the system works, the 3-5-3 kind of system, Ruben Amorim has deployed his front three in Rasmus Højlund, Matthias Cunha, and Bruno Fernandes to lead the press. Against a West Ham backline who look to build from the ball from behind. And in any case, when you look at that second goal that they scored, it was a result of that impressive press. Those front three denying spaces and forcing the goalkeeper Alfonso Areola to try and go long to play that long pass that cuts through the midfield, and then that pass was intercepted by I think Kobbie Mainoo, who plays in Bruno Fernandes, and he scores a brilliant goal. So, but when you look at their structure, they pressed with the front three and then with the double pivot that included Manuel Ugarte and Kobbie Mainoo behind them. Strictly. Now, what the front three did is that they remained a bit narrow in their press. In staying narrow in their press, they forced West Ham to go sideways, to pass the ball sideways. That's to the right and left flank, respectively, to their fullbacks. Now, once those fullbacks, they forced them into that direction, and depending on the direction of play, for example, if the ball had been passed to Aaron Wan-Bissaka, what then shifted was you had the double pivot of Kobbie Mainoo and Manuel Ugarte coming to face, or turning their bodies to Aaron Wan-Bissaka. But also you then had a wing back in either Patrick Dogu, and on the other side it was Amadou Diallo coming to further press. Now, leading that press is the wing back in this case. So in this case, you have, let's say, Patrick Dogu, closing down Aaron Wan-Bissaka or whoever it was on the other side of the West Ham front. Now, again, what that forced, because while this fullback or wing back presses on Wan-Bissaka or on the fullback, West Ham's fullback, the midfield double pivot denied spaces for this Aaron Wan-Bissaka to pass to a Thomas Suchek, to pass to a James Ward-Prowse in the midfield. So, or if that space was there, it was quite limited and it looked like the ball could easily be stolen. Then the other option was going back behind, for which Bruno Fernandes, Matthias Cunha, and Rasmus Hojlund were equally waiting. So they could easily force West Ham into passing errors because they had narrowed down that space with a pressing pack of at least 5 to 6 players in that cohort. The double pivot, the wing back, and then the front three. So at the end, once they forced them in the wings, they could easily close them down, and they were winning the ball back easily. And that's the kind of play that you're going to see from Manchester United going forward. And it can be a very, very effective system, but like all systems, they all have their vulnerabilities. Because if you're very, very good at inviting that kind of press, then you can create holes. For example, I'll give you an example of, let's say, a team like Manchester City, who we know are very, very good at, inviting that press and playing through it. A team like Arsenal, who in recent times have been equally good at doing that, is that they'll start that ball from behind. And then, because they have a very good goalkeeper who has that long range pass, is that when they invite you in the press and you sort of try to narrow that down, they can easily, or even when they build with one of their defenders, they can easily play a splitter into midfield, where you only have 2 players. And remember, how does their midfield assemble? Usually, it will have 3 players. Martin Odegaard will drift further back. You will have Declan Rice, and then you have maybe Martin Zubimendi coming closer to the center to the center backs. Now, if you as you look to narrow that space down, then you have the wingers, the fullbacks on the other side. In this case, Miles Lewis-Kelly, who also inverts to add on to that. So once they play a splitting pass between your pressing front three, it may leave your 2 central midfielders a bit exposed, because that space can be wide enough, to play through. And because you have a back three, if you've already committed one of the wing backs, that ball can be pocketed. It can be, passed out wide to one of the wings, and you have your, back three attack. So as good as a system it is and very effective as it can be, it can also have its vulnerabilities really in the build-up play, when you have a very, very effective team that are capable of building that ball from the back and passing it through the lines. But the overall Man United look very, very compact. They look very energetic, and I think I was watching an interview by the United stand, I think, with Manuel Ugarte, and he was being asked of what the manager told him, and he told him, look, that you play in the midfield, majority of this thing revolves around you. You have to talk, you have to call people, you have to dictate play, you have to fight to win the ball back as soon as we lose it. And I think that's, principle of modern football. The best way of defending is attacking. That's Pep Guardiola 101, to say you need a certain level of domination on the ball, that every time you lose that ball, you need to press it down as soon as possible, win it back, and then get going, to attack the other team, or strategize how to, break those lines. Now, the advantage with playing the back three and going backs is that usually when you're on the offensive, it converts into a back five, and then you have this block of 4 people, that the number 2 10s join the 2 deep lying midfielders in the 6 and the 8 to create another block of 4 people, and then the striker is sort of left a bit alone to try and lead that press. So it can be a bit of a very, very organized system. We've seen it. Italian teams play it with Antonio Conte. We've seen it at Juventus over the years. We've seen it with Inter Milan. What's his name? Simone Inzaghi. That's the kind of system he played when he compacted his midfield, and then he had those strikers up front and that kind of thing. So I thought that was worth noting for Manchester United display there in the USA as they beat up against West Ham by 2-1. So the second goal was a result of that counter press, being quite very, very effective, closing down West Ham from playing out of the back, really building that ball well into forcing Alfonso Areola into making a blind pass that was intercepted by Kobe Mainoo. So brilliant, brilliant stuff. For those of you that have questions about Alexander Isak, not much development has come through in regards to the Alexander Isak deal, but the expectation is that Liverpool are, excuse me, the expectation is that Liverpool are preparing a bid to sign to try and pursue a deal for Alexander Isak. So let's wait and see how things will develop in the coming future or in the near future. So it's going to be really, really impressive to see. Then quickly, let's get to look at the latest from the world of transfer gossip and speculation, because there is a lot going on. That this is a compilation by BBC Sport on regards to some of the latest transfer rumors, speculation, and gossip, and these that could be, on the cards as far as today is concerned. Aston Villa are set to rival AC Milan and Newcastle for England striker Dominic Calvert-Lewin, 28, who is a free agent after leaving Everton. He's still a free agent. The Newcastle are expecting to receive a formal offer from Liverpool for 25-year-old Swedish striker Alexander Isak, that was spoken about, while Manchester United have entered the race to sign PSG and French forward Randall Kolo Muani, 26, who is a top target for Juventus, according to Gazzetta dello Sport or della Sport. Then Ecuador winger Jeremy Sarmiento, 23 years of age, is ready to leave Brighton this summer and attracting interest from South America, but wants to remain in Europe. That's according to The Athletic. While Leeds United have made a second bid worth 32 million euros, brackets 28 million pounds, for Feyenoord's 25-year-old Brazilian winger Igor Paxio. That's according to L'Equipe in France. Then Burnley want English goalkeeper Sam Johnston, 32 years of age, from Wolves, as they look to replace outgoing 22-year-old compatriot James Trafford, who has joined Manchester City. Sam Johnston, does he still have it? For me, Sam Johnston feels more like the Jack Butland. When Jack Butland was coming out, I think through the ranks of, was it Birmingham City and then Stoke City, he looked really, really important goalkeeper. He looked to rival, Joe Hart, but eventually he did not live to the hype. Then meanwhile, Newcastle and Tottenham Hotspurs are all interested in Arsenal's Gabriel Jesus, but the Brazilian forward is also wanted by Barcelona, AC Milan, and Inter Milan, according to Port Offside. I wouldn't want to believe that with an ounce, because the Barcelona president, although you may not take his word for gospel truth, he said, I think they're done, signing players. Oluwase Calvary. Mason Greenwood was good though. Mason Greenwood has always been a very, very brilliant player. It's not every day that you find a player that is good with both feet. The same way you find Ousmane Dembele, good on the right foot, good on the left foot, was impressive. Of course, those sexual assault charges that had been brought henceforth before him, before they were squashed or dismissed. Not dismissed, but before, because the prosecutors lost interest in the case because key witnesses had pulled out of the case. It altered his future at Manchester United, and he ended up going out on loan to Getafe, where he spent one season on loan before making a permanent move to Olympique Marseille. But yeah, he's a very, very brilliant player. But thank you so much for that input. Kindly like the broadcast, but also consider subscribing to the channel as well. Calvary, while you're still with us. So, Tottenham and Newcastle being interested in Gabriel Jesus, I do. AC Milan, I'm inclined to believe. Maybe even Inter Milan, but Barcelona, I don't see it. And I don't even see how they would be able to afford him. West Ham are keeping tabs on Sheffield United's goalkeeper Michael Cooper at 25, while Tolu have opened talks with Brighton over 19-year-old Malian midfielder Malik Yokuye. Yes, Malik. Anyways, that's according to Fabrizio Romano. While Wolverhampton Wanderers are pushing for Morocco attacker Amin Adil at 25, but Bayer Leverkusen will demand a fee of 30 million euros. That's according to Blade in German. Everton and Guinea-Bissau striker Beto, 27, is being considered as an option by Atlanta, according to the Italian press, while Fulham have registered interest in Chelsea's 25-year-old English midfielder, Keenan Brisbury-Hall. Yes, Fulham are trying to pursue a deal for Keenan Brisbury-Hall, although Chelsea want more than they paid for him out of Leicester City, and I do not think he's worth that. I do not think he's worth it. I do not think he's done anything in that Chelsea jersey to command any kind of fee that would surpass what they paid to buy him in the first place. Then Manchester United, Newcastle, Tottenham will battle it out for Serbia and Al Hilal striker Alexander Mitrovic. That's according to Court Offside. Yeah. Excuse me. Alexander Mitrovic has been linked with a potential return to the Premier League. Not the first time we're hearing of this, but Man United at 30, what do you want with Alexander Mitrovic? But let me hope those reports are all wide of the mark. Then quickly, let's turn to yesterday's game between Arsenal and Newcastle. Very, very brilliant game of football that we did witness on the afternoon, on Sunday afternoon. I thought Martin Zubimendi looked really, really good. It was the day that Victor Gyökeres was officially unveiled to the Arsenal supporters, to the world, to the fans in Singapore, as he walked onto the turf, donning the red kit with the shirt number 14, of course. His chosen shirt number. In terms of the context of the game, Arsenal were dominant in the opening 22 minutes, albeit they even conceded within the 6th minute. Anthony Elanga, and I think Mikel Arteta will be fierce in the manner in which they conceded, but also the first goal and the second goal, because they afforded one. For the second goal, they afforded Jacob Murphy yards of space to shoot, and that ball took a slight deflection before beating David Raya to the near post. Given how the positioning of David Raya, you could say he could have done better, but any ball with a deflection usually tends to catch a goalkeeper a bit off guard in terms of the direction of the ball because it varies from the direction of their expectation. Then on the other side, I mean, it's typical play that usually when attacking players go to the wings, they are looking to make a cutback. And I thought Arsenal should have done enough to close the space to deny Anthony Elanga barring that chance. And this is why I'm saying that Mikel Merino arrived late because he should have been there on time to try and block that move, and deny Anthony Elanga getting on that ball. But he did arrive late in that box, so it didn't look pretty. On the other side, Arsenal squad, of course, through Mikel Merino, brilliant finish. He has that finish of a natural forward, and yet he's far from being one. Kai Havertz providing the assist, and then also still in that first half, they won a free kick which they started quickly, and Kai Havertz floated in a cross intending to find Bukayo Saka down the right flank, but that ball, unfortunately, Alex Murphy thought he had something to say about it, but he ended up barring it into his own net to give Arsenal a 2-1 lead. Then in the second half, Newcastle again scored through Jacob Murphy to restore parity before Max Dorman won a penalty, which the captain Martin Odegaard stepped up, scored, and won the game 3-2 for the Gunners. Now, away from the brilliance of Martin Zubimendi, I thought Christian Nogard, when he came on, he looked good. I thought Mali Salmon and William Saliba all looked good. But more importantly, Max Dorman, I mean, that kid stole the show. He was electrifying in his pace. He was not afraid to take on players, so much so that some fans have suggested that he is Premier League ready, that he should be given a chance. And for those of us that do know that Arsenal are trying to pursue a deal for Eberechi Eze, it wasn't surprising to see in the aftermath of that display to see Arsenal fans trying to suggest that maybe Arsenal do not need to sign Eberechi Eze if they do have Max Dorman. I mean, he is impressive, but also you do not want to pile a lot of pressure on him for him to become the marksman of this Arsenal side that are trying to pursue silverware. Can he find minutes in the Premier League? Maybe, or I mean, because you can't just keep him on the bench to wait for a Carabao Cup game that will come once in a month, to wait for an FA Cup game eventually in January that will come once in a month. I think Arsenal, if Mikel Arteta thinks he cannot find playing time for him within his squad or sufficient playing time, then they may look to move him on to a team where he can sort of get more guaranteed playing time. But he really, really looked sharp, taking on those Newcastle players, forcing Joelinton to commit, fouls against him as early as the 30, within about 30 seconds of him coming on, and then there was another time he forced Nick Pope into two brilliant saves. Then he caused that penalty again. Joelinton coming, running at him and ending up shoving him in the back before he hit the floor. He really, really looked impressive on the day, and I do not think he pressed the foot wrong. He looked ahead of his time, really, because when you compare on the other side is Ethan Nwaneri. Ethan Nwaneri is 18 years of age. Max Dorman is 15, and I was thinking to myself, where do these kids get all this confidence that you walk into a men's team and you get to play like this, that you get to dribble past, prime players, everyday Premier League players? Like it's a walk in the park, but also it speaks to the kind of work that gets done at the under 20s, at the academies and things of that nature. I've been honored with the chance to watch some clips of him taking on Manchester United when he played for Arsenal's under 18s, and he looked really, really impressive. I mean, we're talking about a kid that is not allowed is not allowed to have a driving permit or license, not allowed to book a hotel by himself because he's too young for that. He cannot watch a rated movie, a PG movie in a cinema without an adult escorting him. So he is that younger kid. And yet on the ball, he looks well ahead of his time. So of course, it's only preseason. We do not want to get ahead of ourselves. But also, to being honest, because it's about consistency. If he can put on those performances quite consistently, then he will give Mikel Arteta some food for thought in as far as his team selection is concerned. And usually, by the way, this is where it gets challenging, because usually when the season starts, it starts at a point where you're only playing one game a week, and usually you play about 1 to 3 to 4 games, depending on how soon your season resumes, before we go for that September international break, which many people really, really hate, because you have players that have just returned, played 3 games, and suddenly they have to go for international duty. But it is what it is. That's the FIFA calendar. So usually at the start of the season, by the time we go for the international break, the players in those dressing rooms that are yet to kick a ball for their respective teams. Of course, the situation is different for goalkeepers, because rarely do you see a goalkeeper be substituted unless it's an emergency or an injury issue, So, but for all the outfielded players, you find that we get to that first international break before they even kick a ball for their team. which then becomes burdensome to watch a lot of talent get seated on the bench without being used. And let's wait and see. So again, if you look at Arsenal, they do have quite they're revamping their squad. They are adding numbers, but also quality. So it begs the question: where is he going to play? But for me, as I watched him look impressive, I thought to myself, maybe Arsenal are not ready for this, but did they need Noni Madueke? I mean, that's a little bit an exaggeration, but the kid looked really impressive. Prices come on for Bukayo Saka, and he's not placed the foot wrong. But let's wait and see if he can be consistent. Arsenal will have a training session today in Singapore before flying out to Hong Kong, where this week on Thursday they will play Tottenham Hotspurs in the London Derby. So let's wait for that fixture as well to come underway in the not so distant future. Like I said, Thursday will be the day for which they get it all played in. Let me see. Let's see what else there is. Of course, Premier League teams, Manchester United, West Ham, Everton, Bournemouth continue with their preseason tour in the USA. They'll play. Man United will have to play against Everton. They will have to play against Bournemouth during that US tour. But let's wait and see. We'll be here to bring you the latest from that front as well, in regards to what their exploits may be, as far as that preseason tour is concerned. In fact, they will be in action as well on Thursday. That game will come in the wee hours, again at 4:30 a.m. East African time. Then they will also play on the 9th of August. They'll play Fiorentina, but before the 9th of August, they will have played Everton on 4th August. That game will start at midnight. So yeah, and then after Fiorentina, they will be looking forward to kicking off the Premier League season. And like I've just intimated, we will play 3 games at the start of the season, and then we'll go for the September international break that will start, I think, on either first or third, anywhere between first and third. Yeah. So, anyways, that's it for me. It's been a pleasure doing this with you guys. Thank you so much for those that managed to tune into the broadcast. Thank you so much, Agafanov. Thank you so much, Calvary, and every single one of you that liked the broadcast, those that joined but did take any action beyond watching. It's been a pleasure doing this with you. Have yourselves a wonderful rest of the day, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye for now.